On May 27, 1962, what was supposed to be a routine cleanup accidentally ignited a fire underground that is still burning to this day and is estimated to continue for at least the next 2 centuries. Centralia, Pennsylvania, once a thriving community, has been transformed into a ghost town. Located in Columbia County in the northeastern part of the state, Centralia has a history that dates back hundreds of years. The land was sold to colonists in 1749. Over the next few decades, it was surveyed during the construction of roads in the area, and eventually in 1793, a majority of the area's land was purchased by Revolutionary War hero and signer of the Declaration of Independence, Robert Morris. Morris was, however, bankrupt by 1798 and lost the property. The land was then owned by the First Bank of the United States until in 1830, when Stephen Girard, one of the wealthiest men in America at the time, acquired it. Girard had learned of coal discovered in the region, though it still wouldn't be for many more years until anything substantial came of it. A couple years later, in 1832, a man named Jonathan Faust opened the Bull's Head Tavern, and as the town developed, Bull's Head served as its name. 10 years later, in 1842, the Locust Mountain Coal and Iron Company moved into the region, and Alexander Ray, a mining engineer, began to take the first steps towards developing an actual town. For instance, he moved his family in, planned streets, and even built a cottage above the Bull's Head Tavern. Ray was also responsible for giving the town its new name. For a while, it was known as Centerville, owing it to being envisioned as a center of commerce in the developing anthracite coal region, but in 1865 was changed to Centralia since there was already a Centerville nearby. The previous decade was when the town's mining industry really began to take shape. Once the Mine Run Railroad was completed in 1854, large amounts of coal were easily able to be transported out of the town, and in the ensuing years, the Locust Run Mine and Coal Ridge Mine opened, as well as the Hazeldale, Centralia, and Continental collieries. The coal industry helped grow and sustain the town over the next few decades, with the population peaking at 2,761 at the 1890 census. In addition to mines, Centralia had become home to multiple churches, saloons, grocery stores, and other establishments you would find in any town, such as a bank and post office. Despite the hardships of the 20th century, namely World War I, when a large amount of the male population left the coal mines to join the military, and the Great Depression, which resulted in a portion of mines being closed, the town endured, and in the 1960 census, the population was listed at 1,435. Though not as prosperous as it once was, industry in the town continued for some years after, until everything changed in 1962. There is still some debate over what exactly caused the fire, but the most widely accepted theory is that it was an unintended consequence of a routine cleanup. In early May that year, the city council met to discuss how to clean up the garbage in the Centralia landfill in time for the Memorial Day holiday later in the month. The landfill was an abandoned mine pit that had been converted for the purpose of alleviating the problem of illegal dumping, which was a frequent issue for the town. It was decided the best way to deal with the garbage was through controlled burning, and so on May 27th, the town's firemen set fire to the trash in the landfill. While the insides of the landfill should have been lined with incombustible material to prevent the fire from spreading, it apparently was not, and so the fire leaked into many of the nearby underground coal mines and quickly became uncontained and uncontrollable. However, this is just one theory. According to the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection's Bureau of Abandoned Mine Reclamation, some other theories concerning the fire's origin cite a mine explosion in the 1930s, the spontaneous combustion of trash, and even vandalism as the cause of the initial flare-up. After the initial attempts to extinguish the fire with water failed, there was an effort to cover the affected area with clay, which was similarly unsuccessful. Coal contains a lot of carbon, so when it burns slowly and won't stop until the carbon is gone, and in the Centralia mines that can take decades, even centuries. The entire effects of the fire were not evident right away, and the town continued to be relatively normal. Further attempts to put out or control the fire included direct excavation, isolation trench excavation, flushing, filling of the deep mine workings with non-combustible materials, sand, fly ash, finely crushed rock, and surface sealing with clay-like materials. In spite of these attempts, nothing seemed to work. Between 1962 and 1978, $3.3 million were spent by both state and federal governments with barely any progress made. All the while, signs of the full extent of the problem were beginning to show. In 1979, John Coddington, the owner of the local gas station, noticed steam coming from the ground in a nearby lot. Eventually, Coddington was able to measure the temperature of the gas station's underground tanks and found them to be over 170 degrees. This had potential to become an even more serious problem, since the gas might explode if it got too hot, and so the gas station was among the first things in town to close. Within a short period of time, other buildings would be declared uninhabitable due to how they were affected by the fire. Another notable incident occurred in 1981 when a 12-year-old boy almost died after falling into a sinkhole while playing outside. The boy reportedly held onto a tree root before being rescued by his cousin. As incidents like these attracted more attention to the town, it was clear the underground fire was a real problem that couldn't be ignored much longer. In the early 1980s, the Department of Environmental Resources, now known as the Department of Environmental Protection, began monitoring the air quality of the area. Around the same time in 1983, a study from the United States Office of Surface Mining concluded that to completely extinguish the fire would cost around $663 million. It would be cheaper and more practical to relocate the town rather than save it. Ground temperature recordings were found to be on average over 900 degrees, with the highest being 1,350 degrees Fahrenheit. In the years prior to 1982, the U.S. Office of Surface Mining acquired 34 affected properties and used many of them to study the impacts of the fire. In 1984, $42 million was allocated by the U.S. Congress to relocate the town's inhabitants. This was done on a voluntary basis, and many residents accepted the money and moved to other nearby towns. By 1990, the United States Census recorded only 63 people left living in Centralia. The nearby portion of the state highway, Route 61, was formally closed in 1993 after years of damage and repairs. Traffic was redirected to a smaller local roadway to avoid the impacted area. In 1992, the governor of Pennsylvania, Robert Casey, invoked eminent domain to remove the town's remaining residents who refused to leave voluntarily. This led to several legal battles as the people who remained wanted to stay and even claimed they were the victims of a, quote, massive fraud designed to gain control over the town and its resources, with the attorney representing them reportedly saying, "Once Centralia ceases to exist, the rights go to the state, which could sell them to a coal company to operate one of the most productive strip mine operations in the country." There have been arguments over exactly how dangerous the fire is and if it is worth moving, with some Centralians claiming the fire is basically out and no longer a threat. However, this is widely disputed. Steve Fishman, an in-house counsel for the State Department of Community and Economic Development, is quoted as saying, "I don't think there's anyone who seriously believes that the fire is out and that it does not pose a threat." It is also worth mentioning the town's zip code 17927 was officially discontinued by the U.S. Postal Service in 2002. After years of legal struggle, eventually in 2013 a settlement was reached which would allow the last 7 people remaining to stay in their homes for the rest of their lives, after which the properties would be transferred to the state through eminent domain. As of making this video, the most recent U.S. Census taken in 2020 shows the population of Centralia at just 5 people. The majority of the houses and buildings there have been demolished and the once busy streets are now empty and overgrown. Centralia has become somewhat of a tourist attraction throughout the years as many interested people come to see how it looks now. However, visiting Centralia is not recommended and is widely discouraged. In addition to the last remaining locals there not liking people trespassing and damaging their property, there are also multiple safety concerns. Unstable roads and sinkholes are still a problem for both people and animals, with one former resident saying, "You need to watch your step in the woods because the ground can give way." And every once in a while, you would come across a deer sticking out vertically with steam billowing out. They looked like they were crawling out. The poor deer had fallen into a sinkhole and had either starved to death or suffocated to death from the fumes. My friends would claim to see smoke coming out of its mouth like it had been burnt alive, but it was just the way the smoke came out. In addition to falling into the burning ground, there is also steam and toxic gases which are dangerous to breathe and no emergency services nearby. One of the most popular attractions there was the closed portion of Route 61, which had been covered with graffiti throughout the years. In 2020, a decision was made to cover up the highway completely with dirt to discourage visitors. In 1966, to celebrate the town's centennial, a time capsule was buried, scheduled to be opened 50 years later in 2016. It ended up being opened 2 years earlier in 2014 over concerns if the items inside were damaged. What was inside was largely damaged by water and included things such as a Bible, a miner's helmet and lamp, and a photo of the 1966 graduating class from the local school. The opening of the time capsule was one of the few reunions of the town's former residents. It held a great meaning to those Centralians still alive, according to one teacher who grew up in Centralia. It's highly unlikely that the town will be habitable anytime soon, since the fire is estimated to potentially last up to 250 years. Centralia is a reminder of how quickly a community can disappear, a cautionary tale of how the unintended consequences of one bad decision can spiral out of control. Decades will pass, and the memories of Centralia as a normal town will fade, but the fire will still be there, burning quietly underground long after everyone who once lived there is gone. Hey guys, it's the Friendly Neighborhood Pig here. Thanks for watching the video. I know it's been a while since I uploaded, but I will be back with more videos soon. Anyways, be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon with another video.